Hi guys, and welcome back to Chaos Head NoAH. Sorry for the 3-day delay, but I was feeling a bit burnt out. Not just from the game, just, you know, making and uploading videos every day. I needed a moment. But I'm back now, and I'm just gonna keep going at it. Yeah, I just want to get right back into this, so I'll just shut up now. Now, let me try my best to get this voice right, because I've been trying to practice. I started talking with Grim a lot more before booting up ESO recently, to the point where it was almost becoming like a ritual. It never really mattered what we talked about. We'd trade interesting or funny channel threads, go off about porny shit, wreck each other new comics, talk about the anime from the day before, or various other dumb stuff. Funnily enough, we didn't actually talk about ESO very much, but that was just because we already talked a lot about it while we were playing it. Has there been some weird ass prank going around recently? Not a lot to go off there. Deets, please. Oh no, I just heard about it from someone I know. Don't know if it's actually a fad or some shit. It's like there's a recording of a weird sound and you get that as a voicemail or something. What, like a moe voice whispering sweet nothings to you? Lol lol. TF LMAO, what eroge is that from? I mean, wouldn't you rather them just do that to you in person? Lol. No one cares now. Whose fucking eyes are those eyes? Grim was still saying that. Thanks to that, I started to feel awful pretty much immediately. Not to mention, he was talking really weird in chat, to the point where it felt fairly forced, like he was trying way too hard to be funny by shoving those words in. Or at the very least, I didn't find it funny. In fact, it felt more cringy than anything. But I couldn't let myself get angry with him until I'd gotten my info about the prank, so I was forced to put up with it. Okay, so it's like the sounds of a wild otaku freak fapping then? Well. Okay, that's too far. But in all seriousness, they play You May Pass. You May Pass? Like, what? The song? The one that plays at crosswalks and shit? Yeah, that one. And then while it's playing, it'll get cut off halfway and swap to a buzzer-like sound. Apparently the volume is ear rape tier. So yeah, ever heard of a prank like that? That's the kind of thing you'd find floating around at channel, right? Yes. Swapping between two voices is something I'm not used to yet. Yesterday, I'd gotten a voicemail with a mysterious buzzer sound. I had no idea who'd sent it, and the contents unsettled me for some reason, which is why I decided to try and ask Grim if he knew about it. If it was just a simple prank, I could just forget about it. Huh? Grim wasn't responding. Why was he being silent? Hello? Did you die? Still no response. Grim didn't usually fall asleep like this. In fact, this was the first time it had ever happened. If he actually had fallen asleep, then I guess I'd just log off. We'd meet up again later in ESO anyways, so I could just bring it up again then. But the second I thought about that and began to get up from my chair.
Kept you waiting.
Kept you waiting, huh?
I'm gonna. You know what? I'm just gonna try and give this guy a weird snake-like voice now.
I was sifting through that channel. Was looking for stuff about your prank. Ah, so that's why he disappeared. That meant that even the oh so well informed Grimm hadn't known about the prank. But no matter how many threads or boards or whatever I searched, I found nothing. Not on that channel, nor anywhere on the net. So, would that mean that whoever had pulled that prank had some sort of personal grudge against me? I was still curious about the true identity of the caller, but I wasn't brave enough to call them back. Wait, that's it! Since I knew the phone number, that means I could have someone else call it for me. That way they could take the fall.
Takame, you absolute weenie.
The best person for the job would be either Nanami or Misumi-kun. Wait, Misumi-kun may have been brainwashed by the demon girl, so that wouldn't work. As for Nanami, however, I was sure I'd have no trouble asking her to do it. She'd probably get pissed off at me afterward, but who gives a shit? Hell, if anything, it'd be good for her to suffer the tortures of society every once in a while. I thanked Grimm for his help, promising that I'd meet back up with him on ESO in a few hours, and closed the chat. Right as I did so, I felt my stomach growl. Man, I was hungry. Did I have any cup ramen stocked anywhere? I tried looking around for a bit, but I couldn't find any. Reluctantly, I decided to head to the convenience store to buy some.
Get yourself a frickin' sandwich or something. Anything's better than cup ramen. You can afford it. I mean, talk to me.
The sun was already setting. I wanted to avoid going out late at night as much as possible, because every time I did recently, nothing good ever came of it. I unconsciously started walking faster, hurrying down the road toward the convenience store. Today was a Saturday, so I'd expected to run across a ton of pedestrians, but I hadn't encountered a single one so far. All of the stores that should have been open were closed, which kind of weirded me out. Maybe I was just confused. Like, maybe I thought it was 7 p.m. when it was actually 2 a.m. Yeah, like that ever happened. But even so, it was way too quiet. I could barely hear any of the normal city noises you'd expect. The aura the city was giving off was different from usual.
Lansau!
I arrived at the Shinsen Station convenience store. It was right here, it was right in front of the train station, and yet there wasn't a single person here either. I was starting to get more and more freaked out. The sudden disappearance of something I'd taken for granted was enough to make me feel like I'd been transported to a completely different world. On a normal day, I would always avoid running into or talking to other people, but all I wanted right now was to see another person's face. I burst inside the convenience store. There has to be someone working here, I thought to myself as I looked around the store.
Oop, delusion time. Okay, so yeah, for the rest of this chapter, it's neither.
There's no one here. There were no customers nor any employees.
まさか
This couldn't be happening. An employee had to be in the back. If I were to just bring something up to the register, they should come out right after. So I decided to leisurely grab a box. I nearly said blocks. This is Roblox all of a sudden. A boxed lunch, pretended to flip through a manga magazine while I was at it, and then come up to the counter and set the box down. No one's coming out. I tried restlessly looking around the store. No one's coming out. I took out my wallet to make sure I had change. No one's coming out. I picked up the boxed lunch and set it down again, making a small noise. No one's coming out. I couldn't get myself to call out, "Excuse me," or anything like that. I couldn't even if there was no one here. No one's coming out. I thought about testing to see what would happen if I tried to leave without paying, but then I decided that it wasn't worth the risk of getting arrested. No one's coming out. The employee must have gone out to take the trash. No one's coming out. Or they were checking the inventory in the warehouse out back. No one's coming out. After enough time had passed, I started feeling scared, so I put the boxed lunch back on the shelf and left the store. I opted to go to the railroad crossing located right next to the station. From there, I'd be able to see the Shinsen station platform. There was no way a place like that would be deserted, right? That was what I hoped, but there was no one there. No one is there. I was waiting for a train to come home. Once that happened, there would be a bunch of passengers that would get off. But even if no one got off, I'd definitely see people riding the train as it passed in front of me. Even after 10 minutes, a train still hadn't come. I tried to convince myself that there must have been an accident or something that had messed with the schedule, but there was no sign of any passengers on the platform. It was then that I finally realized the gravity of the situation. This was weird. This was really, really weird. That's it. I'll go to Shibuya Station. There absolutely had to be people there. No doubt about it. There were people in front of Shibuya Station 24/7, without fail. I broke into a run without thinking. I ran as hard as I could. I didn't want to stop even if I was out of breath. It was probably the first time in my life that I'd ever run so hard. As I ran, I hoped that this was just some sick dream I was having, but I knew it wasn't. My heart and lungs felt like they were about to explode. The pain was far beyond what you could feel in a dream. It surprised me how unbelievably fast I was breathing. And yet, no matter how much I inhaled, the pain refused to go away. Man, it sounds like he's choking on a sausage. As I kept running down Dogen-saka, I finally saw 107. By the time I did, my legs were already shaky. My body felt extremely heavy. Even so, I forced my feet to keep moving. I no longer had it in me to pay attention to my surroundings. The entirety of my consciousness was focused on Scramble Crossing, the symbol of Shibuya. Almost there. Just a little bit farther. The second I'd passed 107, it'd be right there. The largest in Japan, It was the place where the largest number of people in Japan came together all at once. That was why. That was why I had to get to Scramble. To Scramble.
Scramble to scramble. But nobody came.
Empty. That was the state of Shibuya Station, which I could see from the Y junction running in front of 107. A world without sound. A world that felt dead. A place which had always been flooded with overwhelming sound, now ruled by silence. The only thing I could hear was the sound of my own heavy breathing.
そんな
I fell to my knees in the middle of the large street. I couldn't walk another step. The shock had stolen every last ounce of strength from my body.
ここ渋谷だろ
There was no one to my left, to my right, in front of me, behind me. There was no one anywhere. Even though 7 p.m. on a Saturday night was when Shibuya should have been the most crowded. What was going on? This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I closed my eyes and cradled my head. This was a dream, an illusion. This couldn't be reality. Yes, it was true that I wanted to live a quiet and peaceful life all by myself. I didn't want anyone to interfere with me, and I didn't want to get involved in anything. But that didn't mean I wanted to live in a world where no one existed. If no one else existed, who would pay for my living expenses? If no one else existed, who would make boxed lunches for me to eat? If no one else existed, who would play ESO with me? If no one else existed. A sound. I'd heard a sound. It hadn't come from me. It'd been from someone else. Someone was here. Someone other than me was nearby. I felt like I had been saved. As I thought, it was just a coincidence. It only appeared like there was no one here. In truth, no one had disappeared. I wasn't the only one left in the world. I was so relieved that I almost started crying. I turned my gaze toward the sound,
Only to see a monster.
somebody in a
君は
wheelchair. It was a boy in a wheelchair. A short distance away from me, though still in the middle of the intersection, he sat quietly in place. I couldn't quite figure out how old he was. If I had to guess from his size alone, I'd say he looked like he was in elementary school. He was wearing his hat so low that I couldn't see his expression very well.
やっと会えたね
I could hear the boy's voice extremely clearly. It felt like he was whispering directly into my ear, which made me turn around. Of course, there was no one there.
これどうなってるんですか
Even though he was younger than me, I ended up speaking formally to him.
どうして誰もいないのか君は理由を知ってますか知ってるよ
Despite how young his voice sounded, there was nothing childish about it.
それより僕のメッセージは受け取ってくれた
Message? What message? I had no idea what he was talking about.
誰だ君は
Voicemail.
The boy moved his wheelchair forward slightly. The wheelchair was old and it made a rusty sound as it came closer to me. Oops. Mouse is being stupid. Let me turn it off. Okay.
その目誰の目
Whose eyes are those eyes? I was confused. Why had he murmured, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" just now? Who was he?
目覚めるんだ早く出ないともっとたくさんの人が死んじゃうことになるから君は一体
I rubbed my head to wipe away I rubbed my eyes to wipe away my tears. And because of that, I was finally able to get a clear look at the boy's face. Oh, man. The boy wasn't a boy. His skin was covered with wrinkles like an old man. His cheeks were hollow. His eye sockets had sunken in to an abnormal extent. His pupils were cloudy. He had no eyebrows. And his body was as small as a child's.
僕は将軍だよ
Oop. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My head felt like it had been struck by a hammer. The ground was shaking violently. No, my body was falling over. I shot my hands out onto the asphalt to keep myself upright. What did he just said? Shogun. He was Shogun?
忘れないで君は逃げちゃいけない
I had lifted my head and watched as Shogun, who had already turned his back to me, left Scramble Crossing. His wheelchair was getting farther and farther away, making a creaking sound as it moved. The thought of chasing after him and pressing him for answers didn't even cross my mind. I didn't think of running up and punching him in the face or dragging me into this either. I wasn't even remotely a confrontational person. My head started to hurt. The area around my temples throbbed with pain. Still cowering on the spot, I tried to endure it.
タク
In the world without sound, a discordant noise began to spread, an all-encompassing static. Whose voice was that voice? Whose voice was that? Don't look at me.
タク
What had previously just been a random, discordant mess of garbled static gradually turned into a real voice. Someone gently placed a hand on my shoulder.
邪魔なんだっつうの
何してんだろうね
最近の若いもんは
なんかのパフォーマンスじゃないの
タク
While still trying to endure the pain of my headache, I looked up. Hello there. The demon girl, Rimi, was peering at my face as she stood over me. Eyes that were clear and full of life. Eyes that looked at me, and only me. Again, this girl had appeared out of nowhere once again.
歩ける歩いて
She wrapped her hand under my arm and tried to make me stand up. I shrieked and shook her off. I came to my senses and looked around. I was still in the middle of the street, but it wasn't deserted anymore. There were people around me in every direction. walking every which way without paying me any mind.
タク、
Rimi, with a face that looked like she was about to cry, reached out to me once more.
今は私の言うことを聞いて。夜だ。
When I screamed, the throbbing in my head transformed into an intense stabbing pain. Even so, I ignored it, scrambling back on all fours to try and get away from Rimi.
お前だろ。お前が見せたんだ。お前の妄想だ。僕の心を支配して精神攻撃を。この悪魔め。お前なんて剣で殺してやる。
Takumi, you're being kinda cringe, bro.
ベースに帰れば僕には理想。
An abrupt impact ran through my cheek. It stung with pain, and it began to heat up. She had slapped me.
About time.
She was going to kill me once and for all. Scurrying back on all fours, I tried as hard as I could to escape with my life. But Rimi quickly grabbed my hand. With strength I never thought a girl could have, she pulled me toward her.
Hug.
And embraced me. Her soft form gently enveloped my own. It was so warm. I could smell a tiny hint of sweat. Her silky hair tickled the tip of my nose.
しっかりして。
Such an anticlimax, my whole body felt like it was about to give out.
ここにいたら危ないよ。
Her voice was slightly shaky. I couldn't tell if she was crying or not.
信号赤になっちゃってるから。
I was so confused. Was she not going to kill me? Why was she helping me? The hallucination from before, where all of the people Shibuya disappeared. It wasn't something she'd forced me to see. When I felt such a kind, gentle warmth, and she embraced me so innocently, it shook everything I had believed up until that point. Could it be that Sakihata Rimi wasn't actually a demon at all?
Yes! 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 Oh my god! Yes!
Or was it foolish to believe that? What if this was just a cunning way to deceive me? Regardless, one thing was for sure. With Rimi hugging me, I felt an incredible sense of relief. I had no idea what to call such a strange sensation. Upon letting go of me, Rimi put my face between her hands, then stared at me once again. Her eyes were slightly red.
お願い。今は私についてきていい？
For some reason, I nodded. We were standing still, alone in the middle of the empty intersection. A number of people on the sidewalk waiting for the pedestrian signal to change were watching us closely. We could hear a few people laughing here and there. Many cars had their headlights trained on us and were starting to honk their horns. Mimi grabbed my hand tightly and started running toward the sidewalk. She pulled me along with her and I followed. With countless horns blaring at us, we made it to the sidewalk. Rimi breathed a sigh of relief and stopped. My hand was still in hers. Just being held in this way made my heart feel more and more at ease. I wanted to submit myself to this feeling. I wanted to stay like this forever. Rimi turned back in my direction.
無事でよかったね。
She smiled an incredibly happy smile. I didn't know whether it was real, an act, or what exactly it was. But
話してよ。
because I had been so hostile to her until now, because I had thought of her as a demon until now, if I let her win me over like this, I felt like I'd cease being myself.
あ、ごめんごめん。
She quickly let go of my hand.
それにしてもびっくりした。タクが道の真ん中でうずくまってるんだもん。信号が赤になった時はどうなることかと。
I turned my back to Rimi as she started talking cheerfully. I walked off, pushing my way through the crowd of people.
僕帰る。
じゃあ送るよ。具合悪いんでしょ。
Her voice chased me from behind, but I shook my head in refusal.
タク。
The cheerfulness from before had vanished from her voice. I felt terrible considering how much she had done to help me, so I...
ありがとう。
just barely managed to squeeze out those words. To think that the 3 investigative divisions would actually be merged into one. Staring at the detectives gathered in the Shibuya Police Department's conference room, Bon Yasuji thought that to himself. The Inokashira line Shibuya... Holy shit. The Inokashira line Shibuya Station public bathroom homicide case. The Inokashira line Shibuya Station public bathroom homicide case. Or as the media called it to amuse themselves, the vampire case, had caused an increasingly serious drop in manpower. I don't know who among these people is going to want to call it the Inokashira line Shibuya Station public bathroom homicide case, personally. When three brutal murders occurred within the same jurisdiction within the same period of time, the possibility of a single perpetrator became more and more evident. A suggestion had been raised that the Cornelius Tower mass suicide case be handled by the juvenile division, but the media had been treating it as a part of New Gen. There was the possibility that if the police treated the case differently, they would be subjected to criticism. Therefore, it was only natural that the central office had chosen the only remaining option, to merge the several investigation headquarters. With this integration now in place, the group was reviewing the series of New Gen cases, one by one. The projection screen at the front of the conference room displayed a series of photographs of the crime scenes one after the other. Suwa had been chosen to hold the presentation. He had stayed up all last night going over the documents endlessly. Good work, Bon muttered internally, chin resting in his hands.
コーネリアスタワー集団投身自殺事件の発生は9月7日っす。です。ニュージェネとマスコミが故障している4つの事件の中では一番最初に発生してます。午後11時半ごろ、渋谷コーネリアスタワー屋上のヘリポートから男女5人が転落、全員死亡しました。5人は全員未成年の高校生、男が3人、女が2人。 ただし5人のうち男女1人ずつだけが同じ学校なだけで、それ以外の3人はいずれも別の学校でした。5人それぞれの爪の間にわずかな肉片が残っており、手のひらに引っかき傷があったことが司法解剖で判明しました。そこから5人は互いに手をつないだ状態で転落したと推測されます。屋上には遺書らしきものはなし。被害者5人は学校帰りに待ち合わせてコーネリアスタワーへ向かったようです。なお事件性があることを示す根拠としては、コーネリアスタワー屋上が関係者以外立ち入り禁止であったことが挙げられます。事件があった時間、屋上への扉は施錠されており、その扉のドアノブに被害者5人の指紋は付着してませんでした。また5人の遺品からも扉の鍵は見つかっていません。このことから被害者以外の第三者が事件前後にその現場にいた可能性があります。その第三者が扉の鍵を持っており、事件前あるいは事件後に鍵を閉めて立ち去ったという線で捜査を続けています。コーネリアスタワーのホテル従業員全員への聞き取り調査は終了。ほぼ全員にアリバイがありました。今はタワーに入っている企業の社員に話を聞いているところです。被害者たち5人には今のところ自殺する理由は見つかっていません。家族、友人、学校の教師など5人中4人の関係者が口を揃えて自殺する理由などないと断言しています。
The slideshow swapped to a picture of the second case, the Shibuya Station undergrad and fetus homicide case. I think this is the first time we've actually seen this. Jeez.
続いて通称妊娠男事件についてですが、事件発生は9月19日、通称集団ダイブ事件から12日後。第一発見者は現場近くのカラオケ店店員。遺体発見は午前5時前後。被害者は渋谷区在住の大学3年生近衛千鶴21歳。発見された時にはすでに死亡してました。死亡推定時刻は遺体発見の約4時間前、19日の午前1時頃です。遺体は腹部が不自然に大きく膨れ上がっており、中から胎児が発見されました。司法解剖の結果、被害者は生きたまま腹部を何者かに切開され、胃の中に胎児を入れられたようです。
Yikes.
胎児はすでにその時点で亡くなっていたと思われます。被害者が死亡したのは腹部を縫合された後、縫合した部分をかきむしったり、縫合糸を一部引きちぎった形跡が見られました。胎児は妊娠8ヶ月ぐらいの状態で、母親の体から帝王切開で取り上げられたと考えられます。
Wow, this is just horrible.
胎児の母親については今のところ見つかってません。その生死についても不明です。 DNA 鑑定の結果、胎児と被害者には血縁関係はありませんでした。ちなみに胎児の血液型は B 型、被害者の血液型は A 型です。
Suwa took a breath. He seemed exhausted from all the talking. Furthermore, he must have been awfully nervous giving a presentation in front of so many senior detectives.
次に第3の事件、丸山町貼り付け殺人事件です。
After a short delay, the next slide displayed a photo of the crucifixion crime scene.
これが現場写真です。
Huh. That is not what we saw. Interesting. So, what Takumi saw was it just absolutely riddled to hell with these stakes, but the actual crime scene, it's only like 10 I think. Yeah, 10.
事件発生は9月29日。被害者は太田久志56歳、都東大学教授。第一発見者は現場のすぐ近くのアパートに住む男性。被害者の死因は絞殺でした。殺害された後で10本程度の釘を使って貼り付けにされていました。
Yeah, but 10. So not at all what Takumi saw. Interesting.
見ての通り、遺体には外傷はほとんどありません。
Interesting.
釘についても貼り付けは一部肉体を貫通しているものもありましたが、基本的には衣服を通して貼り付けられている状態です。マスコミでは貼り付け、血の惨劇などと謳われてますが、出血は全くなし。釘はドイツのクロイツナーゲル社が販売している特徴的な長い十字架のような杭です。犯人が十字架型をあえて選んだということから、宗教的な側面からも捜査を進めています。事件の起きた21時から21時半の間に、現場周辺で壁に杭を打ち付ける音が数十分続いていたという証言が複数得られました。被害者の死亡推定時刻がほぼそれと同じ時間であることから、おそらく被害者は現場かそのすぐ近くで殺害されたと思われます。また信憑性は怪しいですが、事件現場で私立水明学園の女生徒を見たという証言も上がっています。最後に井の頭線渋谷駅トイレ殺人事件。
How the hell did he turn
通称
green?
ヴァンパイア事件です。事件発生は10月10日。遺体発見は午前9時半ごろ、駅員が発見しました。被害者の身元は今のところ不明。身元を示すような遺留品は一切ありませんでした。
I'm wondering if he's also going to be in the education department, whether as a student or a staff member, because that seems to be the common thread between all the victims so far. They're either students or staff.
死亡推定時刻は前日の午前10時から午後6時の間。遺体の血液はすべて抜かれており、まるでミイラのような状態で放置されていました。ご存知の通り、この写真が何者かによって撮影され、遺体発見より15分ほど前にインターネットのオークションに出品されており、
As he listened to Suwa's explanation, Bon gave a light click of the tongue. Seems like death is what's in these days. Oh, chapter 3 is over. Chapter 4, D-Sword. Okay. Am I Takumi or am I not? I'll just talk normal. Sign City was a pair of buildings located just south of the Shibuya Scramble crossing. A small plaza rested in front of the entrance to the east building. While it was not nearly as big as the ones in front of Hachiko, the Moyai statue, or other popular destinations, it still found itself used quite often as a meeting place. Even now, around a dozen people were staring at their cell phones, waiting for their engagements to begin. Among those few, only one girl wore an oddly stern expression on her face as she idled, a high school student known as Aoi Senna. She was standing next to the escalator leading down from the Inokashira line station. She leaned her back against a nearby white pillar as she thoroughly scanned the environment with her gaze. In contrast to both the sharpness of her gaze and the season, she was nibbling on a popsicle, which in turn made her appear incredibly charming to the casual observer. In truth, the girl was not waiting for anyone, but it was instead quietly observing the passersby. From where she was standing, she could see all the way to the Jumbotron located at Scramble Crossing. A music video from a famous singer was being displayed on it, and the lower portion of the screen, a news ticker was reporting the latest information on the recent string of incidents, colloquially referred to as New Gen. Not a day went by without New Gen related news. It was everywhere. TV, newspapers, the internet, weekly magazines, jumbotrons, electronic billboards, everywhere. Although Senna had absolutely no interest in the phenomenon, she would often overhear people speaking about it as she passed them by on the streets of Shibuya. Whose eyes are those eyes? Over the past few days, she had begun to see several people wearing t-shirts with those words emblazoned on them. In Shibuya, the phrase had become popular as an obscure meme, and it was now starting to really take off. Despite the brutal scene the words originated from, people happily walked down the streets, raving about how well the shirts were selling at souvenir shops in Harajuku, a clear indication of how disinterested people were in anything other than themselves. Senna snorted quietly in a contemptuous display, finished the last bite of her popsicle, and closed her eyes softly without losing her stern expression. She listened carefully to the noise of the city. An abundance of different sounds billowed in front of the station on that Sunday afternoon. The roar of trains arriving at the platform, the blaring horns of taxis, people walking and talking, the background music coming from the jumbotrons and from inside the Sign City stores, the announcements telling people how to safely ride the escalators. The sounds were never allowed to end. Before one sound finished, another one would appear, creating a multi-layered discord that rang throughout the station. In the midst of all the discordant noise, Senna focused her attention only on the people's voices. Her mind blocked out all other sound, and their words soon became clear.
結局全部同じ犯人なのかな。
違うってニュースで言ってたぞ。手口が違いすぎるって。なんかっつうバンドの歌詞と一緒らしいじゃん。ファンタズムな。お前あのバンドだよ。こじつけてマジで決めたんだけど。今時ファンタズム知らないなんてさ。じゃあ CD 貸せよ。くれてるよな。ほら、これ見てくれ。この前から超ゲルのメタル結構来るじゃね。マジで来てるやつ初めて見た。でもあれじゃね。これってニュージェネの犯人に殺してくださいってアピールしてるようなもんじゃん。俺もいよいよ全国デビューか。
最近渋谷超怖い。マジうざい。歩けねえもん。マジマジよ。そういうの殺される可能性あるじゃない。おじさんだぞ。キモい男とかだけ殺してほしいよね。私マジ応援する。
Whoops. A short click of the tongue escaped from Senna's mouth, and she stopped listening soon after. There was nothing of value to be found in any of the noise. After all, noise was simply that. Noise.
この視線の感覚。気のせいか。
Hi there. Hello. Once more, Senna examined her surroundings. For a while now, she had been feeling a repulsive sensation, like cold fingers caressing her spine. A gaze being cast upon her by an unknown entity. One with which she was unable to pinpoint exactly what the source was. Senna pushed herself off the pillar she was leaning against. Then, as if she had just remembered something, she stared down at the popsicle stick in her hand.
外れか。
Gradually growing more and more discontent, she wrinkled her brow and began to walk quickly toward the station.
あの空はどうしてあんなに泣きたくなるくらい青いのかな。
Because someone wished for it to be.
私は望んでない。
No, but I did. What in the heck? Because this place is your image world, but at the same time, it is mine as well.
ねえ、あの空はどこにあるの？
Wherever you wish for it to be.
望んでいいの？
Seiratan was calling me. Last night's episode of Bloodtoon was awesome. Seiratan played a huge part in it, and there was a super hot kiss scene. The animation quality was practically movie tier too.
起きたらおはようのキスしてあげるからさ。って私何言ってんだろ。バカバカ今の忘れて。
Seiratan was calling me. Plus, she was saying such moe things that I couldn't not wake up. I tore the blanket off my body and got up from the sofa with a groan.
ちょっといつまで寝てるんさこのボケナス。こうなったら私のサムライコンデンサでぶん殴って起こし。
The moment I turned off my alarm clock, the voice of Seiratan that had been echoing throughout the room disappeared.
おはよう、セイラ。
The Seira alarm clock I had was very useful. If I didn't turn it on, the volume would slowly get louder and louder, and if I still didn't get up, an obnoxious buzzer sound would ring out. I wanted it to be Seiratan who woke me up in the morning, so I made it a point to wake up and turn it off before the buzzer. I'd only failed to do so once or twice so far. After all, being woken up by Seiratan was a great way to start the day. Waking up was the absolute worst. I played Vidya until dawn, and the couch had been extremely uncomfortable once I actually had gone to sleep. But having her to wake me up helped alleviate some of that pain. Today was a school day. I'd skipped a day last week, so my minimum attendance chart was really starting to fall apart. With the chart, I was only slated to go twice this week, but because of that deviation, I was stuck with having to go 3 times instead. I didn't want to go, but it'd be much worse if I didn't. If I missed any more days, I wouldn't be able to graduate. Then again, whether or not I graduated made no difference to me, to be honest. Just a moment ago, I'd been having a dream with Remy in it. It was a strange dream. One that felt terribly wistful. One that felt terribly lonesome. One that felt terribly sad. And one that felt terribly distant. Would Remy come to school today? I'd been thinking about the day before yesterday constantly. I'd been thinking about it so often that I'd even forgotten to play ESO yesterday. There'd been the appearance of Shogun and the delusion where every person in Shibuya disappeared. But I was barely giving attention to either of those things. I was barely giving either of those things any thought. It had to have just been a delusion of mine. There was no way Shogun could be such an old man, and the idea of people just disappearing from Shibuya or whatever was completely ridiculous, so there was no point worrying about it. It'd been a horribly realistic delusion, sure, but the fact that I'd allowed myself to fall for something so unrealistic so easily and get all freaked out about it was just embarrassing. But regardless, above all else, I was thinking about Rimi, the girl I'd been calling the demon girl until only a couple of days ago. Most of what I'd felt back then was shaky and surreal, as if it were some sort of dream, but I could still vividly remember the sensation of Rimi's body embracing my own. If she hadn't done that, I could have gone insane and lost myself completely. Why had Rimi saved me? Maybe because we really were friends. I didn't have any memories of us being classmates now, let alone since first year, nor did I remember going to the movies with her along with Misumi-kun. But the way she treated me was definitely how you treat a real close friend. She'd even seemed like she was close to crying when she held me. That, at the very least, I didn't think was an act. That was the first time I'd ever seen a girl care about, let alone cry over an otaku freak like me. When she treated me like that, all of my fears and suspicions were blown away in an instant. In fact, it made me feel like I might fall in love with her. Now, I obviously couldn't let myself do that. Confusion invaded every corner of my mind. How was I supposed to act around Rimi from now on? Was Rimi my ally or my enemy? Was Rimi the new gen culprit? She'd saved me. That was an undeniable fact. But it was just as much of a fact that I had seen her standing still as could be at the scene of the crucifixion, covered in blood. On my way to school, I stopped by Shoto Park. After what had happened with Yua, I had put a stop to my habit of eating breakfast there before going to school. There was no way I could feel even remotely relaxed when I thought that Yua could be watching me from anywhere. And even if I ignored that, if she came up to talk to me, she would start going off about her irritating, delusional schizo bullshit all over again. I didn't want anything to do with a girl like her. Yua was Rimi's underling. Sure, my original guess may have been incorrect, but that didn't mean that Yua wasn't my enemy. It was still possible that Shogun was the boss of the whole thing, and Yua was one of his underlings. Either way, I knew I'd be better off staying as far away from her as I could. And yet, I found myself coming here today for some reason. I examined my surroundings carefully to make sure I couldn't see Yua anywhere. And once I knew the coast was clear, I slowly sat down on my usual bench. I took a bite out of the chocolate bread I had just bought from the convenience store, then looked out at the pond. There was next to no wind, and the surface of the water was calm and serene. I could see the occasional shadows of carp-esque fish gliding through the murky water. The park was unusually empty today. It was a very quiet spot. As my gaze wandered across the park, I couldn't help but think about Rimi. To be honest, I'd been dreading going to school today. I knew I'd have to face her if I did. That was the real reason why I was stalling at the park. I felt like I'd said a lot of awful things to her, and yet the smile on her face never faltered, and she always treated me like I was a close friend. And I was sure that when I went to school today, She would keep on doing that as if nothing had even happened. She'd smile and talk to me like we were friends, pretending that she didn't even care at all about what had happened in front of 107. It was hard to put it into words, but I felt a little bit annoyed by her constant cheerfulness. Yet at the same time, I also ended up feeling more cheerful myself when I was with her. I wasn't sure how to act once I did run into her. It was true that I didn't think she was a demon anymore, but honestly, I didn't think of her as a friend either. Mismi-kun had said that she and I had been really close classmates for the past year and a half, but I didn't remember anything like that at all. Maybe it really was because of the person controlling me. But making my memories of Rimi and only Rimi disappear with pinpoint accuracy like that, there was no way that was possible.
Don't leave trash in the Don't leave trash in the shoe lockers.
Upon entering the school building, I lowered my head even farther toward the ground. As was my usual MO, I kept close to the wall and walked slowly toward the staircase. My class was on the 3rd floor. Getting up there was a pretty big hassle. I could really use an escalator or something.
Hello?
Hello. When I reached the foot of the staircase, I spotted a girl climbing unsteadily up the stairs. She was dragging her right leg a little as she walked. Maybe she'd twisted it. Her petite body swayed from side to side. She looked extremely unstable. As other students passed her by one after the other, the girl slowly continued to climb, exactly one step at a time. Watching her from below, God damn it, Takumi, I would be able to see her panties any second now. Shit, if I kept this up, I'd be labeled as a total pervert.
Last thing I needed was to go in front of a mirror and see myself as Bill Clinton or some shit.
With that thought in mind, I stepped onto the stairs in order to pass the girl, but right when I did, the girl caught the tip of her shoe on one of the steps, and she immediately staggered. Ouch. She then fell down so hard, you could almost feel the crash sound effect. Fortunately, she'd ended up falling on the landing, so she hadn't fallen down the entire staircase. She was still down on her knees from the pain, though, and was staying pretty still. Could this be a flag? Yeah, no way. Even if it was, calling out to her at anything even remotely similar would be impossible for me. So I hurriedly slipped past her. Sorry, but you should get some womanizer who's actually into 3D to help you. Someone like Mismi-kun. You really shouldn't rely on me. But the girl was staying curled up on the ground so motionlessly, I started to get a little worried. I was halfway up the stairs when I slowly turned back around to check on her. The girl was gripping onto the railing and trying her absolute hardest to stand back up. Her knees were trembling. She looked like a newborn fawn or something. Her knee was oozing blood. Maybe she'd scraped it. Her face. I'd seen it before. Wasn't she the girl who transferred into my class last week? What was her name again? I couldn't remember. Oh wow, she was crying. Did it hurt that badly? The fall had definitely been pretty bad, but not bad enough that she'd cry from it. There was nobody else willing to lend her a hand. After just barely managing to stand up, she bent forward and peered down at her knee. She must have been checking it to see if she'd hurt it. The transfer student wiped away her tears, set her down her bag on the spot, and started rummaging around inside it. What's she looking for, I wondered. Suddenly, she raised her hand above her head in a triumphant manner. Clasped in her hand was a band-aid. Our eyes met. The transfer student went red in surprise soon after, then hung her head. Regardless, she looked like she was okay, so I was sure she'd be fine without me. Thinking that, I hurriedly made my way to class. As per usual, I kept my head down and my gaze fixed on my toes. While still remaining silent, I took my seat. When I sat down, I remembered that the transfer student had said something to me on the day she transferred. "I'm so happy we're in the same class," or something. I'd forgotten all about it after everything with Rimi, but I wondered what she meant by that.
Yo, Taku.
Still according to routine, Nismi called out to me. Maybe he didn't have any other friends besides me. He'd always talk to me and no one else, so I was starting to genuinely suspect that.
聞いてくれよ。昨日さ、怪しいおっさん2人が校長室に入ってくのを見たんだ。は？で、俺とリミトでこっそり盗み聞きしてみたらびっくりしたぜ。その2人、刑事だったんだぜ。え？
Detectives?
なんか深刻そうに全校生徒の名簿とか見ててよ。もしかしてニュージェネと関係あんのかな？
Maybe a true new gen culprit. Someone at this very school. I couldn't help it, but a face popped into my mind. Rimi's.
なあ、盗み聞きしてたら見事にバレちゃったんだけどね。
I jumped. Speak of the devil, Jesus Christ. I felt my heart rate leap when I heard Rimi's voice invade the conversation. Versus Ta. It's clear they're made for each other. I couldn't look up. I was too nervous. But this was a completely different kind of nervousness than last week's.
あれはお前がドア勝手に開けたせいだぞ。分かってんのか？
しょうがないでしょ。本物の刑事さんって見るの初めてだったからちょっと興奮しちゃってつい。
何をどうやったらついドアを開けるんだよ。
Somebody needs to get Rimi a neck brace, jeez.
おかげで俺らまで刑事から話を聞かれる羽目になったんだからな。
大臣ってば刑事さんに聞かれちゃまずいことでもあったの？
そういうお前はどうなんだ？
さあね。
Nismi-kun and Rimi were having a conversation with my desk sandwiched in between them. They were completely ignoring my existence. But to be honest, I was grateful for that. Even if Rimi did talk to me, I didn't have any faith that I'd be able to say anything back. I was hoping that the bell would ring before they got the chance to say anything to me, but when I glanced at the clock, I saw that there were still about 5 minutes until class started.
そういやタク、ここに来る途中で梢ちゃん見なかったか？
CoZ-chan? Who?
ああ、そっか。どうせお前のことだから覚えてねえとは思ったけど。
マジでそうだったんだな。先週転校してきた子のことだよ。折原梢ちゃん。
Oh, so that was her name. Orihara Kozue.
階段で
階段？
見た。
お、そっか。じゃあもうすぐ来るな。
Misumi-kun's gave off an aura of intense enthusiasm. I hadn't seen him this energetic since a few days ago when he'd found out that Thess was from the next class over. In other words, I'd never seen him give his all for anything except girls. Which reminded me that just last week, Misumi-kun had already gone to hit on the transfer student the moment she'd arrived. You really are incorrigible. You've got a girlfriend and everything. I hope you're real proud.
なあ、梢ちゃんってマジ可愛いと思わねえ？
He asked me something I had trouble answering. I moved my head down ambiguously, which he apparently took as a yes.
太郎、俺一目で気に入っちまったよ。なんか守ってやりたくなるんだよな。男子みんなも同じ意見だよ。ドイツも可愛いって言ってんだ。けどよ、女子の間じゃあんま評判良くねえんだよな。
Oof.
まだ転校してきたばっかだぜ。それなのに早くもうざいみてえな意見まで出てきてんだよ。
That is the word I have seen used to describe Kozue before I started this game, so... Oh boy.
このクラスの女子って性格悪いやつ多すぎだ。
それって大臣のせいじゃないの？だいたいそのうざいって言ったのどうせ大臣の彼女でしょ？
ああ、そうだけど。
そりゃあ彼女にしてみればうざいに決まってるよ。自分の彼氏が目の前で折原さんを口説きに行っちゃってたらさ、私でさえよく喧嘩売られるんだから、大輔君に近寄らないでって。しかも一人じゃなくて何人かから言われた。
マジ？
自覚なしか。少しは反省したら？
いやー、モテる男は辛いぜ。
これだよ、さすが女の敵。もう私フォローしてあげないからね。あ、折原さん来た。
なんか怪我してるみたいじゃね？
本当だ。どうしたんだろう。
She'd gotten hurt back when I saw her on the stairs. I obviously wasn't going to tell them that, though. I was trying to avoid talking to Rimi in any way possible.
俺、ちょっと行ってくれ。
Misumi-kun ran up to where the transfer student was. Thanks to that, Rimi was the only one left standing close to my desk. Misumi-kun, please don't go. Next illusion. So, let me see here. I've got to pick positive. Rimi didn't say anything, but she didn't move away from my seat either. Considering the fact that I was hunched over so far I sat on my desk that I could nearly sink my teeth into it, I couldn't see her expression. All I could see was her waist, but if that were true, that would mean she had to be facing me. In other words, she was looking at me. Bye-bye reality. Delusion time. I should work up some courage and act natural.
おはよう、崎畑さん。
おはよう。
Alright. First contact went well. But just when I started to feel relieved, Rimi tilted her head to the side even further and broke her neck. We had to take her to the hospital. Rimi tilted her head to the side with a frown.
ねえタク、なんで急に妙竹林の呼び方するの？
妙竹林。
崎畑さんなんてなんだか他人行儀。今までみたいに呼んでよ。
Like I normally did. But I didn't even know what that was.
じゃあ、リミ。
お、なんだいタク。
いや、特に何もないけど。
じゃあ私から一言。
Rimi cleared her throat, then looked around the room and brought her face close to mine.
タクは大地みたいになっちゃダメだよ。ああいう女たらしはいつかひどい目に遭うに決まってるから。
あ、うん。肝に銘じておくよ。
うんうん。タクのそういう素直なところ、私好きだな。
She liked something about me. Huh. In other words, from Rimi's POV, was I the honest, neutral character archetype?
そもそも私、大臣のことで一つだけどうしても許せないことがあるんだよね。あれだけあちこちの女子に声かけてるのに、私には全く見向きもしないってこと。ひどいと思わない？
え、三角くんに口説かれたいの？
I guess that wasn't surprising. He was a total alpha in terms of looks, and he was fun to talk to. Even if you stuck him with a penalty for being a playboy, he'd probably still be the type any girl would like to go out with. But despite what I thought she was talking about, Rimi frowned and shook her head.
タク、冗談きついよ。大臣に口説かれるなんて想像しただけで鳥肌立っちゃう。
She wrapped her arms around herself and made a big show out of pretending to shiver.
私はノーサンキュー。でもなんていうのかな、女としてのプライドっていうものがあるわけじゃない？ねえ、タクから見て私ってどう？魅力ある？
Fishing for compliments, eh? You're asking me something that's really hard to answer.
どう？
And it didn't help that her eyes were twinkling and she was clearly bursting with anticipation. It's... of course I thought she was attractive, but it'd take a lot of courage to say it out loud.
認めたくないものだな。
Oh, deets please. Short for further details, please. Used when an online user wants to get more detailed information on a subject. No one likes to admit it to them. Short for the full quote, no one likes to admit it to them. No one likes to admit to them, to the mistakes they've made because of their youth. A quotation from an extremely popular mecha anime series, often followed up with various lines about youth, such as, "That's what it is to be young." I'm guessing Gundam or something?
若さゆえの過ちというものを。あ、
引っかかった。
Rimi smiled triumphantly. Was she actually an otaku? There was no way. I smiled a bitter smile in defeat. But even though the conversation was completely normal, I found myself having a lot of fun. Up until now, I'd almost never had this kind of conversation with a girl before. I didn't know why, but I felt like we clicked pretty well together. Which is why I was able to say what came next so naturally.
リミは魅力的だよ。
That is the most coherent sentence Takumi Nishijo has said in this entire playthrough. Mimi exaggeratedly threw her head backwards, and her face instantly turned beet red.
面と向かって言われると恥ずかしい。でもありがとう。タクにそう言ってもらえるとすごく嬉しい。大臣に口説かれるより1億兆倍嬉しい。
1億兆なんて桁はないけど。
なんとなくニュアンスで分かってよ。それだけスケールの大きい嬉しさってこと。
Ah, so that's what it was to be. That's what it is to be young. If only I could have that kind of conversation daily. Every day of my life would be fun and fulfilling, and how I saw the world would change completely. But at the end of the day, that was just an illusion. The me in reality couldn't even make eye contact with Rimi. I just kept my head down, didn't move, and stayed silent. I despised my own cowardice, and so I was hit with a fierce wave of depression.
タク？
That felt like such a natural conversation that it's kind of like, how the heck did Takumi manage to have a delusion about that? Rimi, who had been silent the entire time, finally called out to me, albeit hesitantly. But I couldn't respond due to how sudden it was. To her, it probably felt like I was ignoring her. In my head, I knew I couldn't keep acting like this, but in the end, I still couldn't get myself to do anything.
大丈夫？
This time, I nodded frantically. It probably made me look pretty suspicious.
そう。だったらいいんだ。
Mimi's voice was gentle. I could hardly believe it, but she seemed like she was going to continue patiently being with me, even though I was being silent. "Are you okay?" is what she'd said. I felt the sudden urge to ask her something. I wanted to ask, back when we met in front of 107, what did it look like to you? Considering the fact that she hadn't mentioned anything in particular, it seemed like she didn't know anything about the people temporarily disappearing from the streets of Shibuya, nor anything about the wheelchair-bound Shogun, which would probably mean it'd just been one of my delusions after all. That was why I wanted to ask her. But I didn't think I'd be able to look up and do so after all this time. Either way, I couldn't do it today. I couldn't even prepare myself to ask her. So, next time then. I'll ask her the very next time I came to school. Yeah. I should probably organize the questions I want to ask her before then.
あれ？ねえタク、折原さんがこっち来たよ。
The transfer student? Why was she coming over here? Was she gonna come down on me for not asking her? For not helping her on the stairs earlier? But she didn't seem like the type of person to do that. Or maybe she wasn't coming up to me, but she actually wanted Rimi for something. The transfer student came up to Rimi and stopped. She didn't say anything. What the hell? As long as Rimi was here, I couldn't raise my head. The transfer student's toes were fidgeting, but she still didn't try to say anything.
折原さん、どうしたの？
For some reason, the new student timidly then placed a single bandage on the edge of my desk. It was a fancy one, with a picture of that weird character, Ghetto Froggy, emblazoned on it.
Huh?
She's socially awkward too. Let's be socially awkward together. Yeah. Is she giving it to me? how do I react? This Orihara CoZ girl was kind of weird.
折原さん、泣かないで。
What? Was she crying? Why was she crying? Was it because I didn't say anything? But the transfer student hadn't said anything to me either.
タクは怒ってるわけじゃないと思うよ。
Mimi swooped into cover for me. Come to think of it, that was a little bit odd. I didn't know next to anything about Rimi, and yet she knew a lot about me.
彼ってあんまり人と目を合わせようとしないの。引っ込み思案ってやつ。
Yep, she definitely knows him.
だからそんなにガチガチに緊張しなくてもね。私にも絆創膏くれるの？ありがとう。
With that, the transfer student bowed her head deeply to Rimi, and then she sped her way back to her seat. It was almost like she was running away or something.
なんだかよくわかんないんだけど、タク、その絆創膏もらってあげるべきだと思う。
Why had she given it to me?
梢ちゃん、無口だよな。
I got the feeling Misumi-kun had come back.
転校初日に俺が校内を案内したんだけどよ。
うわぁ、早くも手出したんだ。
まだ出してねえっつうの。んで、まあ1時間ぐらいかけてあちこち回ったんだけど、もう俺一人で延々と喋り続けたよ。あの時はさすがにちーっと疲れたぜ。しかもすぐ泣きべそかく。
そうそう、今も急に泣き出したから何が起きたかと思ってあたふたしちゃった。
そんだけピュアなんだよ。なあタク、お前ならわかるだろ。梢ちゃんの仕草一つ一つの可愛さってのがよ、お前流に言うなら萌えってやつだ。なんだ、クソでも我慢してんのか？
I shook my head from side to side as hard as I could.
タク、さっきからちっとも喋ってくれないんだ。
Yeah, that's because you're here. I wasn't ready for that. I had never talked to a friend who was also a girl, all friendly before. Then again, I'd never had a single female friend before. Not throughout my entire life.
でもさ、今折原さんと話してみてなんとなく思ったんだけど。
Just talk to her like you talk to Yua. Oh wait, never mind. You probably shouldn't think about Yua in this situation.
彼女と話してるとなんだか疲れちゃいそうかもなんて。
女子ってのはマジで同性に対して容赦ねえな。ま、梢ちゃんは俺が守るからいいけどな。
ほんの数十秒前に大地も相手するの疲れたって言ってなかった？
うっせ。梢ちゃんはタクと同じ匂いがするぜ。ほっとけねって感じ？
Huh.
それはわかるかも。
That's sweet.
That was a weird sequence of sound effects.
The sound of the bell told me that all classes were done for the day. The second it went off, I packed my things, got up from my desk, and left the classroom. I couldn't stand the subtle distance I felt between me and Rimi for a second longer, so I wanted to get out of the classroom ASAP. Besides, I also had to stop by the manga Darake today. In the end, I hadn't been able to say a single word to Rimi. I'd had several chances to talk to her, but just like this morning, I'd kept my mouth locked shut the entire time. I might have screwed up by doing that. It would make it even more difficult to talk to her the next time I saw her. I was sinking deeper and deeper into the thick swamp that was trying to figure out how the hell to act around Rimi.
あ、お兄
Just as I was about to leave the school building, I was hit with the voice of a certain irritating person. Nanami came running up to me, holding a trash can in her hands. She must have been in the middle of taking it out. Unfortunately for me, the bitch had spotted me, so I tried to ignore her and speed my way out of there, but just like usual, Nanami refused to let that happen. The hem of my uniform was pulled tightly from behind.
妹見て逃げるなって何と言えばわかるの？
なんだよ。
なんだよじゃないの。お兄が逃げるからナナもつい追いかけちゃうんじゃん。
Okay, then don't chase after me if you don't need something.
相変わらず家に電話かけてこないし、まあナナはもう諦めたけど、どうせお兄が真面目に連絡入れてくるとは思えないもんね。
Wow, she actually understood me for once. Then again, I didn't know how she wouldn't, being my sister and all, even though I had no need in the slightest for a 3D one.
というわけで、これからも定期的にナナがお兄の部屋に様子見に行くから感謝してよね。
Damn it, of course it'd come to this. If only I could somehow be freed from the curse of my obnoxious little sister. Be careful what you wish for, Takumi. You've already wished once. Hell, even though it never happened, I at least deserved some form of compensation for putting up with her. I thought about that kind of thing daily. Oh, that was it. This was my chance to put my plan from earlier into action. If I was lucky, it might even work as a modest form of revenge. I checked my surroundings and I started walking toward the courtyard, signaling for Nanami to follow me.
何？
ちょっと来てくれ。
なんで？なんかあるの？
She was so unbelievably annoying. Was she incapable of following me or something? What a fucking idiot.
ナナミに大事な頼みがある。
え？頼み？お兄が？なのに？
Nanami's eyes went wide.
珍しいじゃん。お兄が頼み事なんて。
とにかく黙ってついてこいって。
あ、ちょっと待ってよ。
There weren't many people in the courtyard. During lunchtime, the place was always crowded with students eating lunch, but the only people who'd bother coming out here after school were from the gardening club or whatever.
で、頼みって？
Nanami lowered the trash can she was carrying to the ground, then gave a big grin as she puffed out her chest.
あ、条件はマクで汚りね。その条件飲んでくれるんなら、本当は嫌だけど、お兄の頼み聞いてあげる。
Every little goddamn thing she did pissed me off. I couldn't believe she actually wanted me to pay her back for this. Didn't help that I'd already treated her to McD's before, too. Forget it.
わかった。おごる。
え、本当？今日のお兄いつもと違うね。
Well, yeah, because I was lying. Sauce would be in the liar, lol 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 lol. Saws. Net slang. Short for sorry. Kinda weird that it came up here because I'm pretty sure it's been said multiple times.
often used in conjunction with lol or other common net slang. Example, Saz, lol, lol, lol. Although it is indeed an apology, it is often used in order to tease or provoke the other party instead. And with that, I handed Nanami my cell phone. I then asked her to call the prank caller whose number was stored in my call history. 03-X733-X991.
着歴の番号にかける？相手は誰？
ネットの知り合い。
Nanami was tilting her head with a suspicious expression on her face, so I quickly told a lie that would seem plausible on her.
どうして7がかけるの？
かければわかる。
なんか企んでない？
Oh my god, shut the fuck up. All you have to do is just shut up and do what I say. If you can't even do that, then just go home. I have no use for you.
じゃあもうお前には頼まない。
I went to snatch back the cell phone, but Nanami pulled her hand back, evading me.
あ、わかったって。かけるよ。かければいいんでしょ？ほんと、わがままなお兄だな。
Yeah, you should talk. Choking back my anger, I watched with bated breath as Nanami dialed the number in question. Nanami, blissfully unaware, put the cell phone to her ear and waited for them to answer. I then noticed that on the hand she was holding the cell phone with, she was wearing a yellow bangle. That was the one I'd given to her, wasn't it? Then again, it was more something she'd just decide to appropriate rather than me actually giving it to her. I didn't actually check to see if CoZ or Senna had a bangle like that. She even wore it when she went to school. Did she really like it that much? Even though it was just some cheap-ass bangle I'd gotten for free? Nanami really did have no taste at all. Not that I could really speak for anyone else, though. This didn't matter at all right now. Anyway, who was gonna answer the phone? Will it be some scary Dokyun piece of garbage? Best case scenario, it'd just be a prank and had nothing to do with Shogun or Yua.
あ、もしもし。
Someone must have picked up, so Nanami called out as she covered the receiver with her hand. Brainwashing time. That's what I'm feeling. Only to raise her eyebrows soon after. She then thrust the phone back in my direction.
おに
Never mind.
なんだ。
なんだじゃないよ。現在使われてませんって言ってるよ。
Oh, never mind.
え？
I snatched back the phone from Nanami and put it to my ear. And what I heard was...
おかけになった電話番号は現在使われておりません。番号をご確認の上、もう一度おかけ直しください。
She was right. I guess that meant it really had been a prank, huh? It was a prank where you called a bunch of random numbers simultaneously over a couple days. When the prank was over, both the number and the phone were destroyed. Or something like that. Either way, it was a pretty large-scale prank. But, meh, didn't matter to me either way. I knew now that the mysterious call had been nothing more than a prank, and nothing else mattered anymore.
ねえ、一体何なの？
もうお前用なし。
Leaving Nanami standing there, I started to walk off. But it didn't take long for her to chase after me.
どういうことか説明してよ。
Just
お前掃除中だろ。ゴミ箱置きっぱなしだぞ。
ね、でも説明聞いてないもん。
僕は帰る。
Without dealing with Nanami, I walked quickly to the school gate with her right on my tail.
お兄、じゃあマクディおごる約束だからね。ちゃんと覚えといてよ。
知るか。
ちょっと嘘ついたの？
まあな。
Nanami stopped dead in her tracks, looking pretty upset. But I kept right on moving.
お兄のバカ！
She yelled out in a voice loud enough to echo throughout the entire area. Fed up with her, I went to turn around and saw her glaring at me, with her hands on her hips.
お兄なんて携帯の電磁波の影響で
She never puts her hands on her hips.
死んじゃえ！
Shit, thanks to Nanami's screeching, more eyes were looking our way. Even though I made a point to stand out as little as possible at school. My sister was the most obnoxious shithead of all time. Not giving a damn about what Nanami had said, I ran off toward the school gate. It was best to retreat in times like these. Nanami's voice could still be heard even after I passed through the school gate, making me feel completely and utterly drained. Higashi Matosema was one of my favorite artists. They were ultra famous, and their fans would always form long lines at every one of their events. I'd heard that the new Bloodtoon doujinshi that had come out this summer had sold out in no time flat. I'd wanted to go too, but all of the events where it was being sold at had been way too crowded, to the point where it would have been too much for me. Because of that, I'd found myself tearfully giving up. It'd been naive of me to think that manga dorake would be safe just because they had consignment sales. There had indeed been some consignment sales, but they'd been annihilated in practically an instant. Dog Cafe! On various online auctions, the premium price was set at tens of thousands of yen. All scalpers should die in a fire.
We are in agreement here, Takumi.
Scalpers, a derogatory term used to refer to people who acquire difficult-to-find products, only to sell them at a higher price in online auctions. Regardless, with all that in mind, I thought that it was probably impossible to get my hands on it. However, just yesterday while I had been surfing at Channel, I just so happened to see that the new issue had been recently restocked at Manga Dorake, which is why I'd headed for it immediately.
神様、奇跡を起こしたまえ。
I prayed to the heavens in front of the store, then I stormed inside. I scanned the doujinshi section with my eyes as wide as dinner plates. Oh, huh. I didn't know that stores sold... I didn't know that, everyday manga stores sold doujinshi. Unless they mean, like, doujinshi is amateur works and not just fan fiction. I went back and forth down the aisle, searching over and over again to make sure I didn't miss anything. But I couldn't find it. No, was it already sold out? I casually observed the cashier. It was a girl. She wasn't very cute, but she did seem friendly. She's not cute, so therefore she doesn't get a portrait. I never even once used the hyper-advanced technique known as asking the clerk about whether or not they had a certain item in stock. The reason was, of course,
that I didn't have the courage to do so. And not only that, but the title of Higashi Matsusema's new book was Seiraton Cosplayer Gone Wild. So, yeah, asking about it was completely and utterly impossible. Well, I guess it's that kind of doujinshi after all. Excuse me, miss, but do you have a copy of Higashi Matsusema's Seiraton Cosplayer Gone Wild? If I asked a female clerk something like that, I'd no doubt be labeled as a pervert, and I knew that for a fact, thank you very much. In the end, I simply gave up on asking the clerk anything, and exited the store dejectedly. Or maybe I should go to At Cafe. Flipping between the two as I walked, a sword I had seen before flashed past the edge of my vision. It was a sword with a distinctive two-pronged blade, the one that the girl who'd called herself Senna, had been carrying around the city. In the crowded center guy, the tip of the sword jutted above the heads of people walking down the street. As it got closer to me, I hurriedly took refuge in a nearby arcade. When I peered out from the shadows, it didn't take long for Senna herself to appear, the sword resting on her shoulder. Wearing an expression that was just as terrifying as ever, she walked quickly toward the station. She didn't seem to have noticed me. But even then, after having experienced the humiliation play that was lugging around a sword just like hers, the bold way that Senna walked around without a care in the world impressed me. Was she not embarrassed to hold a huge sword like that? I mean, she had to have been questioned by a police officer at least once. No way she hadn't. As I pondered that, Senna's figure got farther and farther away. Where do they sell badass D-swords like the one she has, I wondered. The one I'd gotten a hold of didn't glow, nor did it have a badass shape, so I wasn't exactly satisfied with it. In comparison to the sword Senna was carrying, mine was far less impressive in terms of design. The entire reason behind me getting a D-sword was to use it as protective charm. Back at the scramble crossing, I'd been trembling in fear and wished for something I could rely on. After Rimi had shown up, I'd become slightly more stable, but the situation surrounding me was not getting any better. I still had a lot of enemies, such as Shogun, Yua, etc. That was the reason why I wanted to get my hands on a D-sword that looked way stronger than the one I actually had. Of course, there was also the collector's spirit found in every otaku. As if drawn to Senna's sword, I'd been staggering over towards Scramble Crossing without realizing it. Oh God, I bit my lip. I didn't want to be out in front of the station. I would reluctantly go to Center Guy or school or whatever because I had things I had to do there. But if I could help it, I preferred not going anywhere near them. Having a crowd of total strangers standing around me made me feel as if any escape route had been stolen away, and just the illusion of that made it hard to breathe. Unsurprisingly, the area in front of the station was infested with people. I was starting to feel more and more sick, so I opted to look down at the ground to try and hold back the nausea a bit. Because of that, the next time I looked up, I realized I'd lost sight of the conspicuous sword. It looked like she'd been walking toward the Hachiko statue, but... Right then, the light of Scramble Crossing turned green. A sea of people rushed into the intersection from various directions. It became pretty chaos-head NoAH! I know that didn't say chaos, but I felt the need to do it anyways. Chaotic. A whole host of people walking every which way, and they did it all without even so much as bumping into each other. When I saw something like that, I realized how unrealistic the empty scramble crossing I'd seen in my delusion the other day really was. There probably wasn't even a single second in the entire year where there were no people in this place. From what I've heard of Tokyo, well, no, this is, I don't know, is Shibuya on the outskirts of Tokyo? Whatever. What was I even trying to accomplish by chasing after Senna in the first place? I hadn't even been able to ask the friendly manga Darake employee whether they'd had something in stock. So how exactly was I supposed to talk to someone who looked unfriendly and scary looking, like Senna? Besides, she might have been my enemy. I didn't know what she'd do to me if I carelessly followed her around without any form of protection. What was wrong with me? I should just go home. I finally decided on that, but right when I was about to turn around... A chain. I noticed a white chain lying down on the street. I couldn't see the end of it because it was concealed by the legs of various pedestrians, but it seemed to be stretching from where I was standing all the way to the other side of Scramble Crossing. What the hell? It was a ridiculously long chain. Was it for construction or something? But there was no evidence of construction going on anywhere. I couldn't believe they'd left a chain lying around like this. Was this a location they were shooting at for some movie or TV show? No, they wouldn't be filming at a time as crowded as this. Okay, then did someone throw it away? A chain this long? It'd already be hard enough just to bring it this far out here. Regardless, it was definitely going to get in the way of people and cars. Tilting my head in confusion, I examined my surroundings to see how people around me were reacting to it. I thought it would be dangerous if someone caught their leg on it, but not a single person was paying any attention to it. I rubbed my eyes and tried looking at it one more time, thinking it might be an optical illusion or something. But the chain was still there. Optical illusion, also known as a visual illusion, a phenomenon in which information is perceived incorrectly, but the person perceiving it is still able to logically discern that it is incorrect. This can happen regardless of the person's mental state. One of the most famous examples of this is the Mueller-Lyer illusion. Sight is established when light received by the eyes is transmitted to the cerebrum via the optic nerve. Once it reaches that location, it acts as a stimulus, and the light information is translated into what we perceive as sight. However, this process involves extrapolating the structure of the external world based purely on light information, which is only made possible by utilizing a filter of empirical data. This leaves room for errors in perception. There's a theory that states that optical illusions occur when an error is generated as a result of the brain operating under a cause and effect hypothesis, but arriving at the false conclusion. In this case, the conclusion based on one's experiences up until that point does not match up with reality, causing dissonance. As well as this, there's a theory that states that humans block out 99% of what they perceive. It is said that if a person would process all 100% of what they perceive, they would not be able to remain sane. I didn't have the courage to touch it, though. It creeped me out too much. It wasn't a cheap-looking plastic one. It was an extremely sturdy-looking iron chain. How long had this thing been left sitting here? If these were normal circumstances, I would think it was some kind of trap. After which, I would have run away in fear, suspecting that something terrifying might have been waiting for me. But now, for whatever reason, I couldn't help but wonder where the chain led. My mind was overtaken by a compulsive obsession that told me I had to follow this chain. I crossed the scrambled crossing before the light turned red, bumping into several pedestrians as I did. At the end of the continuous chain was an old, dark green train car that was sitting next to the Hachiko statue. The wheels had been removed, so it was closer to a monument or an exhibit rather than a functional train car. You were supposed to be able to enter it freely, too. The white chain was extending from the open door to the inside of the train. There were tons of people parked in front of Hachiko, but not one was paying any attention to the chain. They didn't show any signs that they were even aware of it. As well as that, there were no signs of any people on the train at all. With a gulp, I peered inside the train car. Hello there. I'm going to stop here for now because I'm nearly about to hit 2 hours, and I think it'll just be funny to have a cliffhanger this time. So, bye.